In this demonstration, we're going to be walking through moving orders from EBS into Salesforce. And the plan here is that our use case is really that we're waiting for an order to be created in EBS, and then we'll move the customer and the order at the same time. So once we do that, we'll run the customers and orders over through JMS, and we're going to pass that order through JMS as its payload. With that, we're creating the customer and the order in Salesforce at the same time, or basically customer then order in the process itself. And again, we're actually passing those through the JMS, and we're actually taking the raw EBS XML from the output when we're actually passing that order through. So first things first, we'll take a look at Salesforce in this case. We'll go ahead and refresh here. And what this shows is that there's no records that are associated to JMS inside of Salesforce right now. I'll click on here and say all accounts, and we can see there are quite a few accounts in Salesforce, so they do exist. And really all we care about are the JMS records in this case. So we'll refresh, and we can see there's no records in Salesforce now. So I'll go over to Jitterbit, and we'll go ahead and kick this off and then walk through this process here. So in this case, we're actually running it through all at the same time. If we wanted to, we could split this process up and have a process that's actually posting or pushing those messages to the queue. And then we would have another job that's actually specific to whatever system is trying to pick up that message and run that into the subsequent system that you might be writing to. So in this case, we're showing EBS and Salesforce, but it could be EBS and another system. It could be a REST API. It could be a website database, whatever may be the case. The idea here is that we're really pushing this to the queue and then pulling this off the queue based on our polling in that case. So first things first, our first step here, we're actually reading from EBS through the database. We also have the EBS connector, which allows you to connect through the concurrent systems and basically write to, or pull from or write to EBS directly through there also. In this case, we're just reading, so we're grabbing the data directly from the DB, and we're passing that through as the raw XML from EBS in this case. The next step here, we're publishing to this EBS orders here. So if we look here on our run, this was my previous run. If I refresh here, we can see that that record did pass through when I ran the job here. So we've already had that run through. So that's going to that EBS orders queue in this case. I'll close that out. And so that basically passes through and then basically publishes that as the payload onto the JMS queue. The next thing we do, like I mentioned, this is where you might split off and you have other jobs that are going to pull for that payload in this case. We're pulling for that data and then writing it to, in this case, we're writing it to a temp file or memory. And once it's there, we can actually utilize that for, in this case, all three sources. So with this, we're actually pulling the EBS order itself, which does have the customer data on that. We could actually do an extract of the customer and the order separately, so we get more of the bits of data associated to the customer itself. Or we can join those and pull those out as a flattened message instead, depending upon how we want to do that. But in this case, we're writing to this memory or temp as we're passing it through the agent. We then pick that up as our source, and in this case, we're upserting to Salesforce in this particular step. We're upserting the order here, and then we're upserting the line item specific to that inside of EBS, all in the same run. So if we go back to Salesforce and we refresh here, we can now see that we got a customer and an order through, so this is the new account. It is listed as JMS, like I mentioned, and all we did was we appended JMS to that so we can seclude these records into a particular view inside of Salesforce in this case. So we'll click on the JMS Jack Black. We can see we generated a composite key based on the name and an external ID. And if we scroll down to the bottom here, we can see that we have an order that was created from the JMS Queue. And then we can actually see any of the bits of data associated to that order in this case. So really that's the demonstration. Really, again, going back to what we showed in this case, we had moving orders and customers from EBS, building that customer first, and then the order associated to the customer, based on an order being in place first. So there's the use case of many clients of Jitterbit decide they want to wait until an order is created in one system in order to push over all of the customer data and all of the orders into the other systems. So that was our use case here. We ran those customers and orders through JMS and passed those through as the payload. And then we created a customer and order and any associated order line items in that case on the Salesforce side. So I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, please contact support, and have a good day.